There we go. So now I can officially go ahead and start and welcome everybody to the October meeting. There's, as Trey said, there's a bunch of boring minutia stuff going on today. What we're actually going to go ahead and try to go ahead and do is, in the interest of transparency for everybody, we want to make sure that everyone is aware of where we are with getting cross-standardized with the ITUT. We've got our regular TC updates, and we've got not one, but 2 community development corners for this month, I should say. So I am looking forward to working with everybody on that. But let's go ahead and start with some of the updates here. So to kind of recap for everybody, where are we? So, as we talked about it last month, we basically gave everybody an update and explanation of the issues that were found as we submitted to it. There was concern around the trademark language and assignments that were still held by U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So we had developed a set of actions to go ahead and follow. The first was to go ahead and convene basically a Tiger team to draft our intent and provide guidance language to OASIS staff. So we had we set up a Slack channel, had a separate Zoom call, and all that work was completed on the 29th of September. So thank you for everybody who participated in that. I could start naming names, but then I'd forget people, and I don't want to offend anybody.
May I say it's just been a while since we had such a lively discussion, I think, around a document like we used to do back in the old editorial battle days.
Yeah, so live editing of documents was all sorts of fun. We were able to go ahead and complete that work on the 29th of September, and subsequently we opened up a ballot to go ahead and get the TC's vote on that guidance language, which we opened up to a larger swath of participants. Normally, a ballot like this would be opened up to only the folks who have a voting rights, and we opened it up to basically everybody who's a participant. We wanted to have as wide a coverage of this as we could. And so we did that. That ballot passed on the 7th of October. So basically it was unanimous and everyone there. And so something on the order of I think it was 21 out of 30 voting members plus others that joined in. So for a total of something on the order of 50-ish votes or something like that, if I recall correctly. So this was very clear. We transmitted this information over to OASIS and Jamie Clark. And as a quick recap of that, the options that we were working through one is, hey, let's go ahead and negotiate with DHS to say, hey, let's go ahead and remove this trademark license restriction altogether, or transfer it over to OASIS so that there is no third-party issue that the ITU could have an issue with. Barring that, can we renegotiate that license and something that would be acceptable to the ITUT to be able to go ahead and do that? Alternatively, if we're not able to go ahead and do A or B, what is the potential? The implied suggestion is that we rename STIX and TAXII to really horrible acronyms that you can't pronounce in the English language, and figure out what that is, or we withdraw our submission, as a recap. So where are we right now? So Jamie Clark, who is OASIS General Counsel, he is working diligently with DHS right now to see if we can actually go ahead and do this and go through. So I am not at liberty to provide all of the details because negotiations are ongoing. Suffice to say, they are very, very positive, and we expect to have an update, hopefully relatively in the relatively near future. That's measured in terms of a small number of weeks as opposed to months. And I think we're going to have a favorable process for that. So it'll be some combination of either A or B. I'm not 100% sure of what that's going to go ahead and be yet. We did do some preliminary work to understand the impact of migrating STIX to STIE and TAXII to TAEIE, and understanding kind of what that means from a normative language perspective, from a schema perspective, and that didn't look good. I think Emily and Christian could probably provide some more input there if needed, but it goes beyond just the looking at standards, how trademarks are being used. It's also in terms of renaming, open open repositories, other documentation. So it's not an insignificant effort to go ahead and make that change. And it also causes us to go ahead and lose potentially market and mind share with the vendor community, as well as other implementers. So that's a challenge. And we also don't believe that withdrawing is an acceptable or desired option either, because it does diminish the value of STIX and TAXII long-term, especially outside the United States, as well as opening up a potential, so-called vacuum where other threat sharing standards can emerge at the ITUT level. And, again, further diminish the work that has already been done on STIX and TAXII. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. And so are there any kind of questions or comments from the attendees around this that we could answer? Yes, Michael.
Hey, Rob, thank you so much. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I just had a quick question. If I know we're not at a point where we have a decision and you cannot reveal full details, will we have any sense of if we're going option A, so we can maybe start working on the process sooner rather than later and what that means? Is that just kind of, if we go with option A, then are we just getting the TMs out, and then do we need to like push things back through, or can we just take the TMs out of the documents and then move forward? And can we start that sooner than whatever officially DHS has to do to get it taken off?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Mike. I think so where we are right now, and what Jamie communicated to myself and Trey this morning, late last night, I should say, is that I think it's somewhere in between options A and B. He is working on a renegotiation of the terms. And it's an active conversation at this point. Very, very cordial, very, very positive on the DHS side. And Jamie's feeling confident that this is something that we can work with and would also be acceptable to the ITUT. But I don't have the specifics of what that is yet. So it's premature for me to go ahead and say whether or not it's just as simple as removing TMs. And I'm grossly oversimplifying it, but I don't have much more information beyond that.
Oh, so am I. I'm not a lawyer, right? So I'm just trying to get the best understanding of what we might have to do.
Yeah,
But
so I'm hoping, I think Jamie is being hopeful that he's going to have something resolved by the end of the month, but I don't want to put a hard time frame in there that's going to go ahead and cause everyone grief. Trey.
Yes. So, sometimes I just get an idea, and I just did. And if you don't mind, there's a water boiling behind me. I'm making dinner for my daughter at the same time. A long time ago, when Richard Struz stepped down, we had a motion to recognize him as chair emeritus of this TC. And I don't know what happened. Maybe we didn't do a motion, or maybe we were sans a secretary. I see Jane and Kelly calls out to you both. Thank you so much. But for whatever reason, it didn't get encoded in the right way. So OASIS never did anything to recognize Rich. And I've had a couple of people reach out to me, and if I'm forgetting your names, I am. Please forgive me if you're on this call. But folks who are current contributors who were like, could I get my name in the contributors list? So I think we should check if we can update the contributors list of the spec when at the same time that we remove the trademarks. If that doesn't cause us to rev it, we could just add current contributors to it and put their up where it has editors listed, Richard Struz, chair emeritus. It's usually not the place of the chair to make a motion, but I would ask if there is a motion to support such a measure. So the question being, would someone like to motion and second the concept that we do, if possible, update the contributors list, including current contributors, without revving if we can, as well as putting Richard Struz down as chair emeritus? Okay, I hear no support, so I guess we'll move on. Excuse me for having that.
I see in chat that Chris Ricard will go ahead and raise the motion.
Well, thank you, Chris.
And Strong Carol is saying so moves. So whichever one of you guys wants to be first and second, I'll let you guys duke it out amongst yourselves. But I do see two motions of support.
Okay, then we could tie up a longstanding matter of open business and give some credit where credit is due.
And
Thanks for
Margot,
letting me interject.
thank you
Back to you.
thank you for that. Kelly, can you go ahead and admit Thibault from the waiting room, please?
Just taken care of.
All right. So I hear just so so we've got a motion and a second to go ahead and do that. Any opposition, let's put that way, says we can go ahead and do this by unanimous consent. Is there any opposition to this? Hearing none, I believe we can go ahead and pass this motion by unanimous consent. Do you agree, Trey?
Yes, I think so. And if Kelly or whoever is taking notes, please tell me somebody's taking notes. Is somebody taking notes? I'm not going to assume anybody is.
Yeah, Kelly, I'm taking notes.
Bravo. Thank you. Kudos. So please make sure it's recorded this time so that if Chet needs something to point to. Thank you. Back to you.
Will do.
All right, excellent. Okay, that so business is all said and done. We'll go ahead and we'll follow up on that to make sure that those actions get done. Let's go into some TC updates. So speaking of the incredible work that our secretaries have done over the years, we are in urgent need of a new co-secretary to work alongside Kelly. While this isn't a massive amount of work, it is enough that it is hard for one person to go ahead and do all this by themselves. I can't thank Kelly enough for everything that she has done, and to go ahead and do this. So I'm absolutely looking for someone to go ahead and help out here. Duties, recording minutes for these calls, so making sure that things like motions are captured, vote tallies are captured. We do this, at least as of right now, we do this, once a month, 2 times, 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then when those meeting minutes are done, put those out and send those out to membership. Trey, hands.
Hey, I'm so sorry, but you've dialed into the monthly video cast about STIX and TAXII. So I'm just going to interject one other thing. Oh, I think it was about a year ago that it seems like, or maybe more, that we talked about going to quarterly TC meetings. It'd be a whole lot less work for somebody to volunteer to keep meeting minutes 4 times a year than what are we doing now? 24?
Yeah, well, 11 times 2, so 22. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like we talked about that, and there was unanimity, I believe, to go to that sort of quarterly cadence and do more things online or ad hoc, with the tools available to us. As it's coming up on the end of the year, would anybody mind if we co-chairs sort of started the wheels in motion to get us on that track now? Maybe now that COVID's over, we can go back to a plan. I would ask if there is a motion to go ahead and implement the quarterly TC thing. Also, we need a co-secretary, please.
Yeah. We've got one motion from Jane. So yeah, I think this is a good says I probably shouldn't second it because I'm a co-chair. So, but I am in support. I think we are at a stage where we can make this shift, and I think there's some other elements in the works that while we're not ready to go ahead and provide full details on it today, this is that I think we'll go ahead and support this cadence greatly. But just to kind of wrap up on this slide here, to make sure that we have plenty of time for our guests today. Duties are recording of meeting minutes, distributing, managing the TC roster and voting privileges, setting up calls, working group calls, the Zoom setups, and balloting needs. I'm speaking for Kelly, but I think she would you'll agree, it is not a massive time suck. However, being the only person to go ahead and do it can be a drain because every one of us needs a day off here and there. Yes, Kelly.
I just wanted to, hopefully you guys can hear me. I just wanted to throw out something that Jane Gidd said, a year plus ago that really inspired me to take this role. And that was, you don't have to be a STIX expert. You don't have to have been here since the beginning. You don't have to know the whole history of everything. Just a desire to learn more and, to chip in, even if it's just a little bit, is all the qualification needed for this job. And when Jane said that, I knew I was in immediately. So I wanted to say that here, just in case anyone else in the audience resonated with that message.
While we have you on the show to sort of break the fourth wall, Kelly, what are some of the things that maybe you benefited from by your engagement over the years with this TC that might have not been so obvious coming into it?
Well, that's a hard question. I think maybe it was, kind of learning some of the history of, we hear a lot of stories of how things happened, but maybe kind of peeling that layer back one more to learn why and, what the result was, maybe kind of looking back, on things in a historical sense and, not reliving them, I thought was really interesting. And I think just working as the co-chair team, I've been really excited. I look forward to our meetings together. I think from work, a lot of us, work from home and, we maybe work in small bubbles and it's always nice to have new people to talk to.
Excellent.
Well, it's certainly it's a great little community we have here, but the folks in leadership get an extra helping. So if you like this community and you want it to be sustainable, well, maybe look at yourself in the mirror.
So there's a question in chat from Chris. Is there a preference for time zone for the secretary role? So I think the answer to that is not a hard preference, especially if we end up going to kind of a quarterly call with video recording and the like. However, I think, as we look at, right now, a fair number of folks on the leadership are either in the U.S. East Coast time zone or in European, Central European time zone. Trey?
I'm sorry, it's just another stupid idea. But you know how we've always struggled with the time zone issue? If we're going to a quarterly call and we have a main TC call and we record it and we put it on YouTube, couldn't we have co-secretaries in a couple of time zones, and provided there was quorum on the call, they could just go ahead and sort of keep notes and do kind of an ask me anything if there's some kind of response to? I mean, is there not some way that we could innovate around, you've been doing this great job with recording it, maybe we could lower the bar, make it a little more inclusive. We can only have 2 co-chairs, but maybe we could have more co-secretaries.
Yeah, there's nothing preventing us from doing that. But I think the answer to the question is there a preference for time zone? No, there's not. I'm going to be really blunt and saying we're looking for willing volunteers at this point, regardless of where you're located in the world. However, right now, something that is a little bit more palatable maybe for somebody. If we continue going and doing this call twice, even if on a quarterly basis, if we just do it twice to be live. But I think, looking at this, I am open to anywhere in the world. Anyone who has interest in doing this is something that because at the end of the day, I think you want to, I don't want to force anybody to go ahead and do a job. So, I want you to do this because it's something you want to go ahead and do. You're deriving something from this. And I think as both Jane and Kelly would say, they have derived, some, good experience and satisfaction from doing this work, as do I, from in a co-chair perspective, and the like. So, there are, no preferences. Okay. Let's go ahead and move over into some quick, subcommittee updates. I believe we're going to be light on STIX updates, just given everything that's ongoing. But Emily or Christian, do you guys have any comments to make here?
Yeah, I'll go. Christian said that he's in a loud place, and so he's going to stay on mute. But just we voted last month on publishing the best practices guide. And so that is out there and published now. You can see it as a committee note. So that's excellent news. We've been heads down working this month, so nothing massive to announce, but some of the work that we've been doing has been around an extension for a malware artifact. First release TLP 2.0, and so we need to update probably via an extension, the STIX spec to so that we can label things with TLP 2.0. And then, you mentioned it earlier, we did the analysis for the ITU Tiger team. And we're, continuing to work in all of these areas, really looking at extensions right now. And, once again, everybody's welcome. We'd love to have you all come and participate. And that's it for STIX this month.
All right. Thank you, Emily. And I think the other thing that we did is that I'll piggyback on this here is actually we just did a refresh of the TC public page and in Kavi, so it's got a set of updated links to all these different things. So it might be just a tad easier to go ahead and find things. So hopefully that will help folks find current documentation as well. Let's go ahead and jump over to Interop. Marlon and Kartikey.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad that the updates went live. We would have included those in here as well. So there, along with those links, there's also the publications for Interop also on this CTI-TC page. So glad for that. Back on what we have today, we want to announce, some of you probably got the email already, that we have the announcement for the Interoperability Plug Fest that we've had over the summer and late summer. So that is now available. I want to give a big shout out and congratulations and thanks to all those organizations that participated in the Plug Fest, and to Peraton for hosting the virtual and in-person aspects of the Plug Fest. We are looking forward to more Plug Fest in the future, and the work that's being done through the Plug Fest will continue to contribute to the work that we're doing within Interop and to the greater ecosystem. I also want to go ahead and give another shout out to Kartikey, co-chair for Interop, for the work that he was doing specifically on the days of the Plug Fest and leading into the Plug Fest. I was not able to go. I had COVID on the first one, and the work that he did in the background supporting, making sure that we had some data sets and some tests ready for the second Plug Fest really helped expedite the process and make it extremely valuable for everyone. So just want to give a shout out to Kartikey on that as well. Next slide. So moving forward, we're going to start talking about some STIX TAXII certification options. This has been an item that we've been tracking for a while, and now that we've gone through the specification and we have the Plug Fest, we want to refocus our efforts on this. So next slides, we'll just go through some questions and get folks ready to kind of think about that. So the background of what we've been doing so far, we really want to talk about what's the workflows we want to have for STIX and TAXII interoperability compliance certification. We launched the STIX preferred website when we were working on STIX 2.0, and at the time the TC did not operationalize that. We decided to hold off and focus on our work developing STIX 2.1 because we knew that there was going to be some changes that were not going to be backwards compatible, and we wanted to ensure that when we release a certification process to the world, that it would be something that they would easily be able to move into and not have to worry about upcoming changes that would make that null and void. So because of that, we have the site launched, but we've not operationalized it. STIX 2.1 is out. We have the interoperability out. So now we want to look at what we can do moving forward around that space. The current approach, we have the STIX validator, which is a tool you can use to validate STIX. We don't have things like that for TAXII, even though we did develop some tests within the interoperability plug fest that we had over the summer. We're looking or suggesting possibly having a certification in the future. Well, ideas around having certification in the future that would support both STIX and TAXII. STIX preferred is definitely biased towards STIX. It doesn't speak to TAXII, but the TC we support both. So looking to something like that. But moving beyond that, we really just want to level set where we are and try to get insight and seeing if there's any commitment from the TC in working these efforts. So for that, for the next slides, I'll transition it over to Kartikey.
Thanks, Marlon. So our first question, we have two questions that we wanted to ask the TC today. And the first question is there interest in a certification process for STIX or TAXII? So the STIX preferred idea, it would be basically a certification process for STIX TAXII interoperability. And so our question is there interest within the community here for this process to even exist in the first place? So if you could go ahead and raise your hand to indicate whether you have interest in such a process existing, then yeah, please go ahead and raise your hand for that.
Kelly, will you let us know when
Yeah.
when you captured the responses, and then we'll just be able to move on from there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone keep your hands up, please.
And if you're not able to put your hand up for various reasons, you may be called in, you could state vocally as well.
Yes,
Okay.
Jason Kierstead.
Hey,
see-
hi, Trey.
Yes.
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to raise
Hey,
my hand.
hang on 1 second. 1 second. I
Oh,
haven't talked to you
okay.
in forever. Are you okay, man? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm
let's
fine.
let's catch up offline. It's just good to hear you. Good to hear you, man. So what's your question? Go ahead. You have the floor.
Yeah, sure. So my main question was, so, I definitely am in support of a process, but my question is, we did do this, right? So we had the process, but it was never really adopted by industry in any way, any measurable way. Folks weren't actually asking their vendors to do it, and as a result, the vendors never did it. So my question is, do we have a plan or method of attack to make it successful if we do it again, right? I just kind of hesitate to go and do all the work without a strategy behind it. That would be my question.
Yeah, so that is a good question. That is separate from this. We're just trying to gauge interest. Separately, the next question will lead into that. If there is interest, we could then see about doing anything around that space. And in response to vendors not taking it up, we have had vendors push things forward for interoperability for STIX 2.0. But as I mentioned before, the TC didn't operationalize that. So that's kind of been the hold. So even while we haven't operationalized it, we have received some. I'm not going to say that it's, a large or, substantial.
I can't hear you.
Trey, you can't hear me?
Yeah, okay.
You can't hear someone else.
You're back. You broke up there, I think. Maybe it was just for me.
Okay.
Okay, Marlon, you're cutting in and out for several of us. I think in the
it's all right.
interest of time,
Do we have everyone's vote, Kelly, on this?
Yes, everyone. Yeah, we can lower hands. Yeah.
All right, everyone
hey,
lower
hey,
hands, please.
Jason, just let's have a chat because I have an idea, but I don't want to sidetrack us now because we've got two really excellent community development corners this month, and I'll be damned if we don't get to them. So, but I do have an idea for a strategy. So let's sidebar that. Maybe it's a great point.
All right. For the others, I should see Chris, Pat, and Ryu. Your hands are still up. Do you have questions, or is that just?
Sorry, I didn't know we were supposed to lower them. I do have a comment. Are we going to have a separate call on this topic? Because I would like to at least table discuss the idea of engaging like the former interoperability, how we are working with the University of New Hampshire interoperability labs. So
May
I'd
I
like to have that conversation, not here, obviously, but if it's a separate call, or is it going to be on the working call that we're going to take this?
I got an idea. We just did a Tiger team for the ITU thing, and it's not quite done that issue, but like interoperability and certification are two separate things. They're very closely connected, but there are great issues being raised here. Like perhaps you and Jason could liaise with Kartikey and Marlon to come up with a game plan, and let's move forward with it. Certification strategy Tiger team, and that Tiger team can do its own working calls and have its own Slack channel and come back with recommendation to the TC at name a date. 4 weeks.
Yep, you can put me down for that. Good idea, Trey.
Any objections to that? I mean, I'm not trying to just drive through a bunch of motions. I want to get to the community development corner, but
Yeah. So
All right, Sean,
I think
go.
so I think that kind of overtakes the point of this slide here is to go ahead and gauge interest in doing that. So let's go ahead and we'll get a Slack channel started. We'll post that out to the listserv for people to go ahead and join into that, and then we can start from there. Does that make sense, Marlon and Kartikey?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. I know there's a couple more slides for Interop. So Kartikey, take it away.
Yeah, actually, can we go back to the previous slide? Because that was just another question that we had. If we can do this real quick. So this question here is, will you support the development of the process? So this is just the process, whatever it ends up being, whatever it ends up looking like, will you support the development of that? So this is not necessarily once we have a process, will you be active in supporting it and take an active role in the certification process? This is developing the process. Are you interested in supporting that? So please raise your hand if you are interested in that.
This is the conversation we were just having a couple minutes ago, everybody.
So do we
Right,
want to
but if you-
actually
but if
raise
you-
hands here, or do we want to do the
But I
Tiger
just
team?
have to point out, like, if you just ask if the TC supports it, it's a volunteer-driven organization. You know, if you ask us if we support baby pandas, we're going to support it. But does that mean that, like, I'm going to go, like, sell my car to support baby pandas? Or what are you asking me? So if there's not, like, a concrete ask for folks, go ahead and make one. What do you guys need?
Are you willing to join the body that will be working on the development of the process, the strategy for us having, or the strategy for a certification process?
I have no time and I'm raising my hand.
So then you're not, okay.
Oh, I'm supporting it.
Yeah, so I think the support is there. What we will go ahead and do is, again, we'll open up a Slack channel for this, and we'll post that out to the listserv. I am very cognizant of time, and I want to make sure that we give our guests the time to be able to go ahead and present. Can we get through the remainder of the Interop slides?
Yeah, so I think this should be the last slide. So here's just a quick update of where the most recent happenings in interoperability. So STIX 2.1 interop, TAXII 2.1 interoperability updates. The Plugfest happened, the press release went out about that, and now we're looking into the STIX preferred certification, STIX TAXII certification. So.
All right. So cut back on that. So Jeff.
Yep. Can I have my share screen enabled for this one?
Yeah, Kelly, can you go ahead and enable that? I think I'm just in as a co-host. I can't.
Yeah, give me just 1 second, Jeff.
Great. Yep, so I'm going to be going over MWCP and the STIX output for that. Just waiting for the share screen. Okay, awesome. Come on. So I keep spamming it until it eventually says I can. Just let me know when it should let me. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, let me try it again.
Okay.
Okay, hopefully it works second time.
Yep, that worked. Okay. So again, thanks everyone for letting me talk about GC3's malware configuration parser or MWCP and its STIX output. So what is MWCP? It is a Python framework for writing malware parsers that enables integration into tools like IDA and Ghidra while providing a lot of helper methods to make your life easier as a reverser. It's been around for, I think, over 5 years now, but the STIX 2.1 output is very new. So while DC3 does not share the parsers that we make, we do provide a number of examples, and I'm going to be showing the results of a parser that we do have against an older sample, which is available in VirusTotal if anyone wants to check that out as well as part of this. So this can be run via command line or as a web server with multiple output formats, including now STIX 2.1. So it can just be integrated into your malware reversing pipelines or done by hand and the like. So it is able to be hooked into several other tools that we do also offer an open source on GitHub, like Coderre, Dragodis, and Rugosa, which enable hookups into, again, the IDA and Ghidra for string decoding and other stuff. So reversers often like Python, I know, and all this is Python, so you get a lot of fun in Python. And just a quick look at what any of that is. So every single parser is its own class with an identify and run method as the core, as well as whatever helper methods you want. An identify method is just running whatever Python code and whatever hooks you do for that malware sample to say, yes, true, false, I should run the actual run method. And then that run method is what actually builds out and pulls out any items that you want that are attached to the report, including other files that are then processed recursively. And when you're doing this, you do not actually need the reverser to know any STIX. All of that is handled by the framework at the end if they specify that STIX output. So it very much is trying to clean up that burden so you don't have to worry about it. And usage, again, is very simple. When you actually have something written, you can just call it directly, start a web service and supply a file via curl or a web GUI, just again to enable fast development and not have to do one-offs or other craziness or integrations into whatever your environment is. Now we have a support for a lot of STIX objects, so most SCOs as well as some SDOs and relationships as well. Now we did end up needing to make 4 STIX extensions, 3 SCO extensions, the first of which is the cryptocurrency address, which is just a relatively simple object for the address type, the cryptocurrency type, and just what the address string is represented for whatever that currency is, as they all do vary somewhat, or at least there are some variations on this. And because it's an SCO, that means we dedupe, which means if you see the same address in multiple ransomwares, they will all tie together, and you have items that just go into your existing graph software or other analysis, and you can correlate and just go ahead with it. Now, this is not capturing transactions because this is all static analysis, and cryptocurrency transactions will probably be something I know there's interest in, and DC3 is more than happy to help on it, but it's just kind of currently a bit out of scope for what we're looking at. We also have observed string that actually has a lot of weight for this, because as it turns out, when you're doing malware processing, there are a lot of interesting strings that you want to grab and show people and correlate against. So this ends up just basically being a purpose plus the string value itself. All of these are SEO extensions we are going to be putting into the community as a whole, some of which have been shared in Slack for feedback so we can iterate on this. And I definitely think that's going to be a big one, because sharing arbitrary strings is something that is a current gap in STIX that we do need to address, and I think this is a good way to do it. Symmetric encryption is another one where that's a lot more niche, but that is storing the use of a symmetric encryption algorithm plus any keys, IVs, and the like associated with it. It is not storing the actual ciphertext and plaintext, because those should be stored as artifacts or observed strings outside of it, which are tied to that. And because that's an SCO, that means you can track TTPs associated with the same usage of key reuse, algorithm reuse, and the like very easily off your existing tooling for however you're ingesting your STIX and trying to build your large-scale correlations. And finally, we have a property extension of the X509 certificate to capture the private key details, as that's currently not within the spec. That's in some cases been advised for trying to push that as an artifact. However, it turns out malware authors are not actually nice enough to always include enough details to make a PEM or the PEM itself. They will often just split out the variables in various parts just for the minimum sections. And as such, we found it necessary to make an extension instead of trying to always rebuild that PEM, which can't be done. So let's go into the actual look at this. So this is a sample from VirusTotal. When I share this, the previous slide has a copyable text version of this. So you can grab that if you want to look at it or eyeball it from the video. And this is a sample of what's commonly referred to, or in some cases referred to as dealer's choice, as you can see from the screen. So let's take a look at what this actually looks like when processing. So if we dump this into the standard web GUI for that, if we want to run as a web server, we can see, hey, it's an RTF document. Hey, a bunch of files fell out of it. And hey, there was this seed value. And you go, okay, that's interesting. Like there's a bunch of stuff there. However, when we look at it in STIX, we can see very easily that full story where dumping into STIXviz or whatever tool you have, you see this recursive analysis happen where you have your initial file for that RTF, which has a parse and dumps out the doc file, which has another parse, which dumps out a shockwave, which has another parse, which dumps out more shockwaves in a bin, which has another parse to tell you, here is the key used for this decryption / decompression for it, and the payload resulting. Sorry, Trey, yes.
That's really cool. I mean, this feels like the future is almost here. Really cool.
Yeah, so now we did run into some challenges while doing this. So first of all, because we wanted to make sure this full backwards compatible and no changes needed to be made on any parsers, because reversers have, time constraints and you want to focus on the latest. You don't want to be like, yeah, could you like revise this thing from 6 years ago that may or may not be of any relevance? So sometimes they aren't always the best at labeling stuff and no one's going to go back through. So there are strings that we have in some parsers that are unknown or aren't really well defined. You're like, should that really be? But we put it in an observed string, it dedupes, it correlates, and you go, okay, if this is an issue, we will address it later, and those can become artifacts, or we can do a better job encoding in the future. But for now, it's there. Likewise, another item that was a broader spec issue, which has now been called out in best practices, is the fact you cannot put a label on an SCO. And MWCP is a firm believer of, hey, look, let malware reversers label everything. So what instead we do is we attach a note and put the label on the note. And best practices call out that a label on a note when into an SCO should be interpreted as the label on the SCO itself now, because that way we kind of get around it and helps this. So there are other cases for notes. So for example, in some cases, we ran into data that was very much just for human consumption, or while technically machine consumable was so specific, you wouldn't necessarily want it there. So for example, you'd have something like a base 32 alphabet, because some malware will make its own base 32 or base 64 alphabet. And that's something where you go, technically a machine could consume that and make something meaningful. But let's be honest, you probably won't. So really, we're just going to give that as a comment, as a note on this malware, and just have a human look at it. If, in the future we find out that's not true, we'll look at other objects. I'm always stare at observed string on that one, but it felt a little odd when we were authoring this. And in other cases, they'll just put a comment or description on there. In some cases, the description is duplicative of just the base structure of the STIX, like, yes, this RTF contains a shockwave file. We go, great, I saw that, good work. In other cases, it's a lot more specific. And, again, when you're making something general, you make sure you keep it in there just in case, because you don't want to mess it up. Now, another item we had run into is the fact that you cannot put compilation data on a file SCO. You can record it for malware, but because malware SDOs and thus have variable IDs, and you can have compilation data for non-malware, and that's very easy to get that even if no parsers run. That's not something we would always want to assert or lose. And as such, we use notes to just record that compilation data, because mostly it's something a human's going to look at, but there is real analytic value to that, because Lord knows people play games with compilation data or leak information about their environment from it. So the final really big thing we had run into on this ties to network traffic. So malware, when you're parsing it, will often contain information about, hey, look, I'm going to listen on this port, or I'm going to send data to this port, and you might not know any IP addresses tied to it, because usually they don't care what IPs are sending to them. They just want the stuff. In other cases, you can't resolve it, or there's no DNS. You just know they'll be doing something. So in those cases where we could not find this, because network traffic requires the providing either a source or destination, we use 0000 as a broadcast to say it could send anywhere or receive from anywhere. And it's not great. It's something we might want to look at as how do we generalize this better so lazy systems don't suddenly see giant correlation about how everyone is vulnerable or hitting up the 0000. But oh well. And finally, network traffic by default has no way to generate a unique ID via UUID v5. This is because it was mostly tracked as a way to generate dynamic content for what is flowing through your system, and as such, you would never see the same traffic twice and it would not be relevant. However, when you're performing static analysis or going over PCAP, you do want it to do that because ultimately, every time you run a tool, you want the same ID. And as such, we did specify our own UUID v5 namespace to get deterministic IDs for this network traffic we are creating. And I apologize for going so quickly, just trying to keep everyone on time. And any questions?
No, this is really awesome, Jeff. And I appreciate you guys at DDC3 to go ahead and provide this to the community and do it. So the GitHub link was in the title page, and it'll be part of the part of the deck that goes out. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next ones again, because we have a bonus for you guys this month. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce David Greenwood of SignalCorps, who's going to go ahead and talk about the STIX utilities that they've developed. Go ahead and support their tools and supporting a lot of unstructured data, and how do you go ahead and get that actually into STIX format. So David, you should have screen sharing capabilities, so take it away, please.
Cool, thank you very much. And very cool tool, Jeff. Actually, we should have a chat because I'm about to show my own developed cryptocurrency SCO, and I'd love to see the spec and the extension definition for yours. So it looks like I was late to the party on you building that out.
This is a great test case for our STIX extensions, sort of like best practice policy thingy. We've got sort of two folks who've developed the same thing. Why don't y'all see if you can put together a little Tiger team with a Slack channel and turn it into a common object?
Indeed. Yeah, I think there's definitely something there. So I'm going to talk today about a engine we built into some of our products. It's called File to STIX. It's essentially a Python library that looks at unstructured files and turns it into structured STIX intelligence. So it's very similar to what Jeff has just shown, but a lot more dumbed down in terms of how it actually works. So I work for a company called Eclectic IQ, who are committee members here. On the side, I work on a lot of open source tools under the branding of SignalCorps, and File to STIX is just one of them. And File to STIX and a product that we built under the SignalCorps branding came out of a daily habit, that is getting up and checking all of the blogs and articles and posts on the internet that were covering the latest stories in the world of intelligence. As if there's any other analysts on the call, as a lot of other analysts probably do as well. And I use Feedly to do that. And one day I noticed there was a Feedly threat intelligence add-on that passes, and I think it passes into STIX data as an output. But then I saw the pricing and thought, no, there's absolutely no way I could even think about buying this for my own use, and I probably can't get my company to buy it for me either. And what I was noticing and speaking to people doing a similar sort of flow, they were going through these blog posts, they were going through emails being shared, they were going through various other ad hoc sources of sharing data and copying and pasting from it. And what we've done with File to STIX is no rocket science. There's a lot of IOC-based regular expression extraction tools on GitHub, and we've been inspired by many of them. But ultimately, what File to STIX does is take an unstructured document, look for patterns inside of that document, look for semantics inside of that document, and create STIX objects out of them. So File to STIX was originally a backend to a, let's call it Feedly Lite or Feedly cheapskate version, whereby we built an RSS reader that pulled RSS feeds and Atom feeds. And as those feeds were brought in, they would be parsed and read by file to STIX, and then ultimately you would get a STIX bundle out of the other end with relationships and all of the STIX objects that had been detected using the regular expression extractions. Sadly, life got in the way and a lot of those projects fell by the wayside. And this file to STIX engine was always sitting in the background, and I thought, hey, there must be people out there that can take advantage from this IOC parser, let's call it, to STIX. So I decided to open source it, and that is what I'm talking about today in file to STIX. So file to STIX will take various file formats. We'll either unpack them in case of sort of binary Word documents, for example, or also in the case of HTML documents, strip all the HTML tags out that are not relevant. It'll then run regular expressions on top of those to identify 25 different extraction types, and you can write in your own custom extractions as well. So there's the option to build your own, and then out the other side you'll get a STIX bundle with that data extracted. Now it is fairly simplistic in how it actually works, and I want to make it very clear that file to STIX is not necessarily to be used as a product for finished intelligence. It gets or identifies data, but you wouldn't take it and necessarily use it for reporting. Other tools you would ingest it into, and then you would manipulate it, organize it, and produce finished intelligence from what has been generated. In terms of the support, so in mapping a lot of the data to the regular expressions and the types of data we support going out, we use a lot of STIX domain objects. We also use out of the box the attack and CAPEX STIX2.1 objects. So there's semantics in file to STIX that will detect if various tactics or techniques or tools are being used, and then pull that in from the attack knowledge base and stick that in the bundle as well. And this is where the SCOs come in. So we built a lot of regular expression extractions for lots of different things, the more common stuff like IPv addresses, directories, domains. But we also started to look at, through banking and finance use cases, cryptocurrency, credit cards, and international banking numbers as well. So you can pull all of that out of the files you stick into a file to STIX. And I'll quickly show you exactly how that works, or using a very quick demo. So I'll share my other screen now. So as I said, file to STIX is a Python library. There's also a command line tool in there as well. So at its most simplistic, you can take a file like this. So this is just the simplistic text file I'm using for the demo. And you can put it into file to STIX. And then what it will do is it'll read that file and it'll try and extract all of the objects from it. The ultimate output is a load of STIX objects and a bundle that you can use as well. So if I take this bundle here that's been produced, I go here, and then I go here. So that's the bundle that's just been generated, and I put it into some sort of viewer like this. The relationships here can all be tweaked, and you can play around with how it's actually represented. But what we've got here extracted is the IPv4 address with an indicator, and the pattern for that, you get the IPv4 SCO. And then essentially, if you're dealing with lots of objects related to a single report, you get these relationships back to the original report. I was very interested to hear the developments in moving towards TLP 2.0. Right now, you can assign different TLP levels to the objects extracted. What you see here, one of the things I've been playing around with, and this is experimental at the moment, and actually your your best practice guide that was released recently kind of undid some of my initial thinking. What also happens is the objects extracted are compared against missed warning lists. So for those not familiar, a missed warning list is essentially a list of benign IOCs, things like google.com, microsoft.com, things that are not malicious. And what we do inside of each object is essentially, if there is a match to a missed warning list, we will list the missed warning list in an extension definition to that object. Now, why I bring up the best practice guide is what I have deduced from that is it's probably better to capture this information in the external references property than play around with custom extensions in trying to track this. I've only got 2 minutes left, so I'll wrap it up there. There's actually a lot of other features and flags that you can run under the hood with file2sticks to tweak it in both custom extractions, in terms of how things are extracted, how relationships work. But hopefully this has given you a bit of a gist as to what can be done at a very basic level with the tool.
Outstanding, David. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to go ahead and show us this. The couple of comments, at least from me, is given that you are with Eclectic IQ, says go ahead and leverage that. It says join us on a more regular basis. Love to go ahead and get your feedback. I'm sure I speak for Emily and Christian that as they are putting together iterations on best practices and the like and other extensions, they'd love to go ahead and hear from you and your real world experience on this. So that's awesome. And I think there were a couple of questions in chat around how does this relate to TRAM, from a that's the MITRE ingenuity mapping to attack framework, if I'm not mistaken. And then also ability to differentiate between crypto wallets and file hashes.
Yeah, so to the first question on the difference to TRAM, so the MITRE TRAM tool is very good, and I actually want to take a lot of the code from that and put it in the back end of file2sticks one day. Let's see about that. TRAM is semantic-based detections. So whereas file2sticks at the moment is quite simplistic in pattern matching. So to take an example of how MITRE ATT&CK objects are mapped, what we do is we look at the MITRE ATT&CK ID, we look at the MITRE ATT&CK title of the STIX object, and we then map that back. So if we see explicitly, let's say T100 in a threat report, that will be mapped to the whatever technique that is in MITRE ATT&CK. MITRE TRAM is smarter than that, and quite honestly better, in that MITRE ATT&CK in that case is more based on linguistics. It actually looks at the semantics of a sentence and says, okay, it's not a particular technique that I see in the report explicitly listed. TRAM will actually say, based on this sentence, I think what this is trying to say is this is a particular technique. So MITRE TRAM is a lot smarter than file2sticks, is the too long didn't read version of that.
Oh, excellent. So the last comment I thought was in there is just in terms of feel free to go ahead and contribute missed warning list match to extension to the TC as you're considering developing it, and we can incorporate that at a minimum as part of the extensions that are out there. It says we can definitely walk you through kind of the paths to go say what is a kind of a community extension versus an official extension, and there's a very defined process for doing that. But we definitely welcome the contributions. So any other questions for David?
I think there's one more about the crypto, the definition. Again, it's simplistic at this point. So what we're doing at the moment is we can detect a wallet based on the structure of the hash and the type of hash, right? So we can use a regular expression to determine that, but we don't differentiate beyond that at this point in time. But the code is all open. I've pushed it out into the world under MIT. So if anyone wants to contribute and has more knowledge in that area around how to write logic into regular expressions to do that extraction, I'd very much welcome it.
Excellent. All right, with
If,
that,
if I may,
go
if I
ahead, Trey.
may, I'm so sorry, we're past time, but I have to drop like a quick old school joke. We used to say in the sysadmin community that if you met somebody who was really good at regular expressions, they were like somebody with neck tattoos. You knew not their life story, but you knew they'd had a really interesting ride. So kudos, thank you for sharing that.
I cut my teeth building regular expressions in the early days of Splunk, so that's where it comes from.
All right. Well, with that, we are over time by a few minutes. I do thank our presenters today, David Greenwood and Jeff Mates, for doing that, and Jeff's amazing patience for getting cut on a couple of occasions because of other pressing business. We welcome you all to go ahead and join us next month. Video will be posted up in the next few days, and we'll keep you all apprised of how our progress is going with that. And Trey, final words.
Do tune in next month. Do tune in next month, because like we're seriously moving to a quarterly basis. So if you like this and you keep calling because you seem to like it, do dial in for the next couple, because then it's going to be a while. Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me. Bye.